My name is Barbara North, and I currently serve on your Board of Trustees. I am delighted to welcome you all here to church today, whether you are here present with us in downtown Oakland, if you have joined us from Zoom, or if you are catching up with us later via our recording on YouTube. We are so glad you are with us. As we continue to journey on our path towards a radically inclusive, anti-oppressive community, we are delighted to be together today. As part of our community building, I have several announcements to share, and I apologize, there's so much going on, I have it in multiple formats to make sure to share all of the great news and exciting activities with you. The first of these is that the next Board of Trustees meeting will be this Tuesday, November 29th. Normally, that would have been last Tuesday, but we rescheduled because of the Thanksgiving holiday. All members and friends are welcome to attend this meeting via Zoom. We will begin with a 15-minute public comment period at 6:45 p.m. You can also send us comments to board@uuoakland.org to be read out loud for you. The links for the Zoom meeting and the meeting packet are available in the Chalice Chatter. Next Sunday, December 4th, and on every first Sunday of the month before worship service from 9:30 to 10:15, you are invited to attend Poetry Circle. Join other poetry lovers to read out loud favorite poems or those that you've written, or just go to listen. You can contact Ron Weisberg at poetry@uuoakland.org for more information. Also next Sunday, and on every first Sunday, starting 20 minutes after worship, join the Journey Towards Wholeness team for anti-racism discussion and practice. You can learn more by contacting the Journey Towards Wholeness team at jtw@uuoakland.org. We also invite you all to save the date. Saturday evening, December 17th at 7 p.m., we will be back here for our annual holiday concert, Light These Lights. After 3 years, church musicians are live and in person here in Hamilton Hall for an evening of holiday favorites and new music, featuring some of your favorites, including Joyful Noise Band, Crescendo Choir, and talented ensembles and soloists from throughout our congregation. $20 or pay as you are able at the door. Childcare will be available. We look forward to seeing you there. Welcome to church.
This morning, we invite you to witness a reflective land acknowledgement that helps us build understanding and solidarity with Indigenous peoples.
What I've learned from my elders is that when we do acknowledgement of the land, it's not about acknowledging whose land it belongs to, because that Indigenous worldview, we never owned the land. We were simply caretakers of it for future generations. And what I've been taught from my elders is that when we do that acknowledgement of the land, it's much more than just the territory. It's about relationships. It's about our relationships with people that share the land. It's our relationships with Mother Earth. It's our relationships with the four-legged, the finned, the feathered, the crawlers, the original stewards of Mother Earth. It's that relationship that we acknowledge with the trees. It's that acknowledgement that we have with the plant life that is part of the food chain and helps us exist. It gives us our medicines for healing, gives us food for nutrients, it gives us our medicines for ceremonies. We acknowledge water. Water is sacred, water is life. And what we're told is that when we acknowledge that water, that we always have to acknowledge the carriers of those teachings, which are the woman. So we do that in the same voice. We also acknowledge the infinite wisdom of the grandfathers. Then we take that to the next level, is which acknowledging that relationship that we have with father-son, or in some nations, brother-son. We acknowledge that relationship that we have with Nokomis, Grandma Moon, and how she cleanses Mother Earth. We acknowledge that relationship that we have with our distant relations, the star people. So when we talk about acknowledging the land, it's so much more so than just acknowledging what nation was on that. as we know through all throughout the history of Turtle Island, is that Indigenous people were, for the most part, nomadic people. They shifted. They would move from season to season. It just so happens that Sheridan sits on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, which I'm very proud to always share and educate with people. But in the same breath, I also acknowledge that many, many other nations have walked this territory and that their ancestors are still here amongst us.
Let's take a couple of quiet minutes to think about what we have just seen and heard, and to settle in and center ourselves for the remainder of the service. The peace candle and Black Lives Matter candle will be lit during our silence, and you will see unspoken words for each on the screen. After our shared silence, we will light the chalice and say chalice lighting words. Let us join together in saying our chalice lighting words, and, if you want to, our chalice lighting motions, which I always screw up. We light this chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. May it remind us of the divine spark in all of creation, the power of love to heal what is broken, and to be grateful for life's blessings each day. As we gather to reflect on community and care, we reflect on the words of Black ancestor Maya Angelou. We need joy as we need air. We need love as we need water. We need each other as we need the earth we share. And in one voice, the people say, "Come, let us worship together." I invite you to join in singing For the Beauty of the Earth.
I invite you to rise in body and or spirit to join us in singing. The words will be on the screen.
For the love which from our birth
Let us, in the spirit of community that brings us all together each week, greet and welcome one another, both virtually and physically, extending the common bond of fellowship to all who wander our way. As we are still in pandemic conditions, please be aware of safe space and consent to touch one another. Good morning, congregation. Let us greet one another. Good people, would you wind your way back to your seats as Susan Kiter leads us in the singing of Comfort Me.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Thank you. That was lovely.
We're so grateful this morning to join in a time of embracing meditation. And in just a moment, Dick Bailey will ring a bell. And he'll do it at the beginning and end of our reflection and sharing time. Bev Smurha, who's here this morning, can give a wave. Brought the bell back to the church from when she lived in Taiwan, and she flew with the bell in her lap on the airplane. Thank you, Bev, for your connection and care with this community. In just a moment, when Dick rings the bell, you'll have a chance to say a word or two about the things that are on your heart. We might not hear every single word that people say in this room or on the Zoom, but we have care and intention for it. And in that way, we sit together to hold this with each other. So, Dick, if you would ring the bell, and for us and for people in the Zoom, we can say a few words about the things that are on our hearts. Let's begin.
Happy birthday to Stephen Schneider.
Will you take a smooth, easy breath with me? We pause to give thanks for the many gifts of life that are ours, gifts that we find expressed and enhanced in the community of this congregation. We're grateful for our family, chosen family, tenacious family, our friends, and all they mean to us. We are grateful for opportunities to learn and grow, for teachers of all kinds, those who come into our classrooms and those who come into our lives. We are grateful for the insight and beauty we find all around us in the natural world, reflected in changing seasons, in stretching and shrinking light, in rising demands. We are grateful for the ministry and for all the forms that it takes in our community of faith, in teaching. We hold our care of children and family ministries, Jeff, the parents and supporters of the Spark team, every single student. Care for our children, care for our seniors, as well as seniors who care. Active in pastoral care, in justice, and in explorations of faith and knowledge, in imagining of how we can further build community. And care for our building, in leadership tasks, both large and small. We give thanks for the gifts we share, and the honor, the gratitude that we feel within and among and between one another. For all these things, we give thanks and say, Amen. Now we'll join in singing Peace, Salam, Shalom.
We are going to do a chant together, and it's actually pretty easy. So I'm going to lead it, and we're going to sing it several times. The only words are peace, salam, shalom. Would you say those with me? Peace, salam, shalom. Look at you, you're pros already. This is very easy to do, but mostly I just invite you to be here, to be present, and to join in whatever way you feel comfortable, energetically, quietly, singing, mouthing, sneezing, hopefully into your masks, in whatever way brings you joy and comfort. And this is how it goes. Peace, salam, shalom. 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 Peace, Peace, salam, shalom. 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 One more time. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Before I start, I'd like to say that a couple weeks back, when I sat down to write my reflection after Pastor Ninán and I had talked about the service, what I wrote was much longer than either of us anticipated and didn't follow what we had agreed on talking about. So I showed it to Pastor Ninán, and rather than asking me to go back to the drawing boards and stick with what we had agreed, they adjusted the plan for the entire service, including their own participation, to allow this heretic to speak his mind and his heart. Freedom of the pulpit is a fundamental precept of our denomination, but that courtesy has not always been extended me. I wish to thank Pastor Ninán publicly for sharing the freedom of pulpit with me. Church member Molly Hermes, who I initially knew as Molly Huber, prior to her marrying Commissioner of Baseball Don Hermes, wrote recently on the church listserv that community is complicated and church community is really complicated. And I've loved the church and been mad at the church, whatever. Community is complicated, and there you have it. I love the whatever. In my nearly 29 years attending church here, I have witnessed and been part of numerous controversies and disagreements. I've had my foot out the door more than once, indeed more like half a dozen times, to be honest. And our times of communal strife have never been enjoyable. During those times, I often turn to this guy named George Odell. I've never been able to find out much about him, yet I feel as though he's a soulmate because of one short reading he crafted that's in our gray hymnal. I pulled it out over and over up here and in pastoral associates meetings and at work and in covenant groups and as an opening and closing of meetings in Rossmore. I beg your patience for my self-indulgence in pulling it out yet again. I'd like to tell you why I came to this church, but perhaps more importantly, why I've stayed. In his responsive reading, "We need one another," George Odell begins, "We need one another when we mourn and want comfort. My husband, Greg, and I found this congregation because our spiritual lives were bankrupt. And because other churches that we had visited in the area, churches that we expected to be authentically inclusive, just didn't seem all that welcoming. Former co-minister Jan Eller Isaacs used to say that when people come here, they felt like they were coming home. Well, coming home to me would have meant returning to my family in San Diego, an environment where I wasn't fully accepted. But not so coming home to First Oakland. Indeed, here, coming home was like taking a bath in macaroni and cheese and Cozy Shack tapioca pudding all mixed up together. Our first service was based upon Maurice Sundak's Where the Wild Things Are, and featured church member Chuck Rosine's band, Buffalo Rome. The second service was about alcoholism. The third service spotlighted the talents of the Rose Trio, including Sky Atman on piano and Rebecca Parker on viola. The third service was about baseball. First Oakland was an ever-changing, highly welcoming comfort food for two weary spiritual travelers. Odell says, we need one another when we are in trouble and are afraid. There came a time in the 1990s when Greg and I took a break, not from church, but from each other. We'd been together about 15 years, were struggling in our relationship, and Greg took off for a month to sort out his feelings, and I stayed here to sort out mine. And Greg did that, secure in the knowledge that I would be held in the embrace of this church community in his absence. I was in trouble, and I was afraid, but I wasn't alone. Thank you for that. Greg and I are still together, lo, these almost 39 years. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. Some of you know this, some of you probably don't. I have an addictive personality. I'm a recovering alcoholic, amongst other things. And you and Greg and my other friends hold me accountable so I do not devolve into an altered state that I would ultimately sorely regret. Thank you for that as well. And every time I walk into this church, when my heart is open and my ears are looking and my ears are looking, that's what it says. My eyes are looking and my ears are listening for the possibility. Who proofread this anyway? I experience something that is new every time. I experience something that is new or renewing or heartwarming or hard to hear but true, that calls me to be a better self. Curiously, I find that when I attend worship services that I expect to get the least out of, I end up being surprised and having to apologize to my better self for being wrong. Case in point. A few weeks back, I came to a service forgetting that it was going to be an earth-based service put on by the Circle of Oak. I was pissed at myself. I had forgotten to remember to stay home. Not another Wiccan ritual. We just had one of those. Well, was I ever wrong? Zia Swim conducted a service for Samhain, a celebration of those who have passed over, and it blew my socks off. Not only did I learn a lot up here, but it was profoundly moving as any traditional tolling of the bell service I've ever attended. Thank you, Zia and the Circle of Oak. Thank you, church. Odell continues, we need one another when we strive to accomplish some great purpose and realize we cannot do it alone. This church community has accomplished so much. fed the homeless, sheltered victims of earthquakes and the first influenza epidemic, opened its doors to a gay church when no other church in the Bay Area would during the AIDS crisis, spawned several dozen Unitarian Universalist ministers who came to the Star Kingdom School for the Ministry as seminarians, had their choice to attend numerous U churches in the area, and chose this one as their home church in which to grow their chops. How fortunate are we for that? Another example, the late church members Joan and Howard Poulter started the Lafayette School Mentoring Project 25 years ago, which morphed into Boost West Oakland. Over time, members of this congregation and others have mentored over 2,000 elementary school students in reading, writing, and math. And for many, it didn't stop there. I know members of this congregation who have bonded with their students, the students that they tutored as they have progressed through their teen years, attending softball games and soccer matches and PTA meetings and quinceañeras. And some of those folks are seeing seeing to it that those kids, the kids they met through Lafayette School, the neighborhood school they became involved with because of this church, they are seeing to it that those kids that they met at 5, 6, and 7 years old will financially be able to go to college. What a gift to those kids. What a gift to society. What a gift to those mentors. And those gifts are continuing. In the upcoming weeks, we will hear the latest news from Boost Executive Director Tylisha Hooker, who will have exciting news to share with us. We need one another in our hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. It dawned on this congregation in the middle of the first decade of this century that we had not done the work to become a welcoming congregation, so we couldn't put that little rainbow symbol next to our homepage to attract those for whom that might be important. Frankly, we didn't think we needed the work. Weren't half of us queer already? What could be more LGBTQ plus woke than that? The feisty lesbians sat over here. Us gay guys cowered in the back. Not really. Well, we spent a year and a half going through the UUA's 16-point program to become a welcoming congregation. Thank you, Francie. Finding out that maybe we weren't quite as woke as we thought we were, particularly when it comes to the T in LGBTQ+. Our steering committee met every other week, and I remember one such meeting where a transgender member not only wanted to quit the committee, but the congregation as well, because of the treatment he had received from other congregants. I asked Reverend Kathy Huff to attend the meeting. She didn't usually attend, partly because that wasn't her practice, and partly because she and I had our different difficulties, our differences, and I preferred that she not attend. I'm so thankful, however, that she came to that meeting. She facilitated the gathering, encouraging him to express his hurt and his anger, which ultimately allowed group support and love to envelop him. And he's decided to give us another chance. Thank you, Reverend Kathy. I never told you that. The final step in the process was to ask the congregation at an annual meeting if they were ready to be a welcoming congregation. To do this, to test this, I asked, sadly in a way which did not allow everyone to fully participate, if the folks who identified as LGBTQ+ would stand up if they were comfortable. And a number of people did, including a couple who had never publicly self-identified before. Then I took a deep breath and asked the folks who had remained seated to stand if they were comfortable declaring that they were allies of the people already standing. And virtually everyone stood up and virtually everyone cheered. I didn't cheer, I cried. But I wouldn't have missed that moment for the world. Thank you, congregation. We need one another in the hour of defeat when, with encouragement, we try to endure and stand again. I believe that it was at the holiday concert in December 2016. And if it wasn't, don't tell me because it makes a better story that it was. Just a month following the general election, when many of us fellow travelers' spirits were pretty down and the future seemed anything but bright, that at the end of the concert, right here in this room, the lights were dimmed and those assembled rose in body and spirit and in unison, without accompaniment, tentatively at first, fully engaged as they went along, proceeded to sing John Lennon's Imagine. It was one of the most profoundly, palpably holy experiences that I've ever had in my life. And just 2 weeks ago, Scarth Locke led us in We the People All Rise Up, Feel the Wave of Democracy. What a moment. We absolutely need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we try to endure and rise again. Finally, George Odell says, we need one another when we come to die and seek gentle hands to prepare us for the journey. How many celebrations of life have taken place in this room? How many of you attended? Each one I attend makes me feel held in the greater embrace of this congregation. But there is a sadness too, and not just for the lost loved one. Celebrations of life bring out people who used to go to church here, but don't anymore. And that's the only time I see them. It's a bittersweet experience, joy and woe. I'm 75, and I'm winding down. I lose 1 or 2 more marbles every day. And my energy is primarily focused on napping. I have been involved in the life of this congregation for some time, sometimes heavily, oftentimes sporadically. Sometimes I've been all in, and sometimes I've come really close to walking away. If I were to leave from this point now, other than from infirmity or the celestial discharge, it would likely be because I felt that we had lost sight of our mission, our ministries, our collective gifts, or how to be with one another with respect, dignity, grace, and love. Former African-American congregant Bill Smith stood up here and said it best at a Journey Toward Wholeness service. that the future of society is being shaped now in the hearts and minds of our children and grandchildren. While that's our social imperative, it applies just as well to the future of this congregation. I believe that is our mission, to work now to make things better for generations to come. And fortunately, in this generation, in this congregation, in this denomination, we believe in that divine spirit spark in each of us. No one person has all the gifts, not even Joan and Howard Poulter. As much as I admired them for their dedication and through all the bumps in the road, and they experienced many, keeping their eyes on the prize. Each of us has gifts, not the same gifts, but different gifts, phenomenal gifts. And together all these gifts complement one another and have achieved great things and can continue to do so if we look after one another and care for one another in the process. Joan Poulter used to remind me over and over, it's not just about the minister, Dick. We are all ministers, and it's about our ministries. Joan was no Pollyanna, and she was not one to mince words. Each Sunday she'd come to church, sit down, listen to our house band, and say, joyful noise, dreadful noise if you ask me. And then the next week she'd come back, sit down, listen to the house band, and say the same thing over again. But she didn't let her disagreements get in the way of her involvement. And she kept coming back through 9 ministers and 10 choir directors until the day she died. Now you know a bit why I came to the First Unitarian Church of Oakland in 1994 and why I have stayed. Molly Hermes is right. Communities are complicated, and church communities are really complicated. Why did you first come here? More importantly, why have you stayed? I pray that we never lose sight of Bill White's notion that the future of society is being shaped now in the hearts and minds of generations to come. One thing is clear to me at this point in my life, at 75, I'm not the future of this congregation. You are. You are both those generations to come and their future. Our future. The upcoming generations cry for your gifts. And so do I. Odell concludes with this line. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
Thank you, Dick. You may remain seated while we sing, I Am Sending You Light. Actually, why don't we stand? Let's stand, if you wish. You may remain seated, and if you remain seated, just move your toes, move your body a little bit, and let that spirit move through you. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you.
when Dick shared his reflection with me, one of the things that jumped out at me as deeply meaningful was the beautiful history of this congregation woven through Dick's experience. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic caused us to close the congregational campus until we could gather safely. Slowing down and stopping aspects of congregational life has been difficult. It was last week that we talked about changing the way we talk about wearing masks. As we enter the holiday season, we have much to be grateful for and much to nurture. One of the things that we hold together is that things continue to change. People continue to get COVID exposures, and we continue to build the beloved community. When I think about ways we can strengthen our ethical and spiritual practices and our connections with one another, one thing I am thoughtful about is what impact the invitation to culture of self has. For some people, any invitation to change is startling. It may bring up sensations of shame and guilt. I'm going to ask Dick to try on my winter coat. Are you ready, Dick? I'm ready. There was a time when I served in Idaho, and I will tell you that those snowdrifts went from the floor up to the balcony. And so I needed this coat. What do you think, Dick? It doesn't fit. So you know what Dick is going to do? He's going to take it off. And you know what? There's another layer. Even if that coat did fit, if Dick didn't want to wear it, we say, what do we say? He wouldn't have to. And so, you see over here a poster that's going to introduce you to 6 thieves of church peace, so you could be on the lookout. But I think it's actually more important for you to know why I would tell you that and how I would tell you that. In the same way that Dick doesn't have to wear a coat that doesn't fit, social work researcher Brene Brown frames the difference between some of our struggles as people this way. Shame is a focus on judging ourselves. We say we feel shame when someone tells us we are judged or we are bad. And is Dick bad when the coat doesn't fit? Is the coat bad when the coat doesn't fit? Maybe the coat is annoying. We'll give it that, right? But one of the things I want you to be clear about as a community is, and I'm going to show you his picture. Are you ready for his picture? It's actually the second, so this is how we normally start. We normally say you're invited, but then we can talk about this guy, William Ellery Channing. You know what the kids say an OG is, right? An original guy, an original gangster, the original dude. He was one of the OG Unitarian Universalists, by which we say he was at the beginning. He made an investment. One of the things that William Ellery Channing taught people is that our relationship with the things that are greater than us, the world, our communities, the planet, what is spirit moving among and between us, those things are based on love. Your conscience tells you how to love. If you get advice about these 6 bad guys, it is not because you are the bad guy. It is not even because you are meant to look for bad guys. Rather, the invitation is what William Ellery Channing suggested, that each of us has the opportunity to dedicate ourselves to our own culture and our own growth. So in the way that shame says, I am bad and I am shamed and I cannot take this advice, right? This isn't that. This is, that's some advice. Let's see if it fits. And I told you earlier, well, I don't know if you saw, because you'd have to read your chalice chatter, but in your chalice chatter, what I mentioned was this. There is a specific relationship to the question of how we develop in community in Orthodox Judaism. And I bring that example to you today. Before we talk about bad guys, we use that lens to see, hey, am I being less loving than I could be? And if I am, then I make those adjustments. No one's here to tell you that you're bad. No one's here to tell you that you're wrong. But it is an opportunity to nurture that seed. For some people, the whole thing reminds them of the principal's office. The whole thing reminds them of detention and demerits and being told they are not enough. Have you ever heard anybody feel that way? Talk about that feeling. One of the important things about us trying on different ideas together is that we return to William Ellery Channing's idea that developing ourselves is our biggest opportunity, that our relationships can be relationships of love, and in that way, grow, make a difference. I want to close today with words from Rainer Maria Rilke, who reminds us this. When we talk about what is in our hearts that we find fearful and afraid, what is concerned that we might be bad or we might be wrong, he tells us this. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love. So you mustn't be frightened. And, we're going to comment here and say, if it were that easy, we would never be frightened. But we're together. If a sadness rises in front of you larger than any of you had ever seen, if an anxiety, like light and cloud shadows, moves over your hands and everything you do, it is something helpless that wants our love. Every man owes to himself, Channing said, the unfolding and perfecting of their nature. I have some news that I'll wrap up with today, and that is that likely it will take you longer to become perfect than you have days left to work on that project. But remember, you are beloved and you belong, and the things that you do matter. For all these things, we give thanks and say, Amen. Now I invite Dick to come up with our invitation of generosity.
There are many ways of giving, and they'll soon be on the screen. If you are willing, please place your hand on your heart for a poem by Rosemary Watola Trummer entitled, As You Have Done for Me. If you were here, I would put my hand on your heart and hold it there until our breaths become a single tide. Hold it there until I could feel the moment when you remember your infinite value. It's so easy to forget that we are a treasure, so easy to lose track of our own immeasurable worth. The chest rusts shut. We think we are empty. Amazing how easily we are fooled into believing we're paupers. Sometimes it takes another to remind us we have always been not only the treasure, but also the key. Though the hinges are a metaphor, the treasure is not. We were made to open, to share our priceless gift, to press our hands on each other's hearts and hold them there until we all remember. Will the ushers please come forward? Please join Carol Wood and MJ and Pastor Ninán and myself in saying the congregational response to the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community. We dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. Thank you so much.
Now, if you would take one smooth, easy breath, relax your hands, relax your jaw. Imagine that a week has gone by from today, and you have left this place in peace. You have practiced love throughout your week, and you return in joy to tell us of the world around you. Go in peace. Practice love, return in joy.